I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is Biden's decline. Who knew what, when? New questions about Kamala Harris's role and one of her own potential Democratic rivals in the race for California governor. Antonio Villaraigosa is here to talk about that and more. Plus, our panel, strategist Dan Schnur and Matt Klink on the week's biggest stories. And my commentary on how this anti-Semitic attack should be a wake-up call for us all.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
Was President Biden's debate performance just one bad night? Or was it something that was often seen behind the scenes at the White House? The new book, Original Sin, by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, argues that debate was not an aberration. And there was a concerted cover-up by the Biden team to conceal his condition from the public. Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris, could be a candidate for California governor. His Secretary of Health and Human Services, Xavier Becerra, is already in the race. Also in the race, Antonio Villaraigosa, who is raising questions about what his fellow Democrats knew. Antonio Villaraigosa is, of course, the former mayor of Los Angeles and former Speaker of California's Assembly. He joins us now. Mr. Mayor, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Alex, good to see you.
Great to see you as well. So what is your main point about Original Sin?
Well, as you said it, people have called it a cover-up, a conspiracy of people, a coterie of advisors, cabinet members, the vice president, all of whom participated, watched him every day, and saw his deteriorating health and kept it from the public. And so I've asked a simple question. What did you know? When did you know it? And why haven't you said anything? And of course, there hasn't been a response from either one of them.
Do you think that there was a cover-up?
I don't know, but in reading excerpts from that book, what's very clear, there was an intentional effort to keep it from the public that Biden's health, President Biden's health, was deteriorating over time. It wasn't just the debate that we all saw where we said, oh my God, they were doing things a year and a half earlier to hide that from the public.
We know that Kamala Harris was his vice president, was with him all the time, likes to talk about the fact that she was the last person in the room before big decisions were made. I mean, if that was happening, she would have seen it, right?
That's the question. There was also excerpts in the book that Xavier Becerra was confused for Secretary Mayorkas, the Homeland Secretary. And that's the simple question. I think there's an answer to that question, and I think we all want to hear about it. Because it's really not just about what happened in that book. It's about the consequences. Mm-hmm. Trump got elected, a convicted felon, an election denier, a climate change denier, someone who's put tariffs that are hurting small businesses and middle-class families, who's cutting Medicaid here in California. So it's the consequences of this failure to act or say anything that we're really focused on.
So you blame Biden for the fact that Trump got elected?
Well, I blame the people around him who refused to say something about, sir, you're not ready for another 4 years. It's clear from this book that they intentionally kept it from the public.
I mean, obviously, you're mentioning Kamala Harris and Xavier Becerra, both of whom are probably your two biggest rivals. Xavier Becerra, though, was not necessarily known for having the closest relationship with Joe Biden. Here's how Joe Biden introduced him when he was naming him as Secretary of Health and Human Services.
For Secretary of Health and Education Services, I nominated Xavier Becerra.
For me, it's the consequences of their failure to say anything. It's their participation in this charade that somehow the president was ready for another 4 years.
You know, there's a lot of Democrats that are going to watch this and say, we're really concerned about what the president now is doing, and that all this time talking about Joe Biden is distracting from what the president now is doing. They point to the fact also that this could be a risky strategy for you. I mean, Kamala Harris won California big, Joe Biden won California big, and there's 25% more Democrats in this state than Republicans. I mean, could this be a risk in bringing all of this up and maybe not the smartest strategy.
First of all, this isn't a strategy.
It's not? This isn't a political play to get your name out there and to go after your main opponents?
I love my country.
Yeah.
And we just elected a man who is a threat to our democracy, who has done everything he can to undermine our economy. A man who I don't think is fit for office, but who clearly won because we had a 100-day campaign. If we had had a longer campaign with a candidate that could articulate not just what we're against, but what we're for, we might have had a different election.
And you're suggesting in that 100-day campaign, that was Kamala Harris. That wasn't Joe Biden who was the nominee.
Right.
You're suggesting that she did not do a good job, basically, what you just said.
When I'm suggesting she might have done a better job if she had a longer period of time. We had a 100-day campaign.
Yeah.
That's the other reason why she should get in if she wants to get in. At the end of the day, we need to shine a light on all of us.
Yeah.
Guarantee you, they will shine a light on me.
Yes, well,
but when they do, they're going to see I've been a proven problem solver. So I have a track record. Let's put the light on all of us.
Since you're raising the issue of age and cognitive ability, you're now 72. If you were inaugurated, you'd be almost 74. If you served out an entire 2 terms, at the end of your 2nd term, you'd be almost 82. Should voters be concerned about your age and cognitive ability?
Let's be clear about this. I'll be roughly the same age as Jerry Brown.
Yeah.
Last time I looked, Jerry was one of the best governors we've had in a very long time. I would say the best. And the fact of the matter is, I'd go into his office and he'd do pull-ups every day. Well, every morning I'm doing push-ups and I'm in the gym. I'm healthy and I'm ready. And so,
You'd be roughly the same age as Joe Biden, too.
No, I'd be roughly the same age as Jerry Brown.
I mean, if you did a 2nd term, I should say.
And you got to get elected first.
Okay.
And then you got to have 1 term. And I tell you, I'd rather be transformational in my 1st term than mediocre in 2 terms.
Yeah.
So, the people will decide, but so will I. And so I'll tell you what I won't do. I won't ever allow advisors or misrepresent to the public whether I'm ready for the job. I can tell you this. I'm ready for the job.
We want to wrap up with something called Personal Issues, which is our fun sort of culture game to get to know what you're doing away from the politics stuff, right? What you're up to these days. So what's your favorite TV show as of late? What have you binged?
I did binge Succession.
Succession's great. Favorite book that you've read recently?
Ezra Klein's book.
Abundance.
Abundance.
There's a lot to learn from the California governor
I've
there.
been talking about that for years.
Yes, you have. A favorite movie you've seen recently?
Favorite movie? That one you got me stumped on.
Okay, maybe you got Mission Impossible this weekend if you want to check it out. And what is the best way to relax on the campaign trail for you?
Is to get plenty of sleep, which I don't usually get. But I notice when I get more sleep, I'm rested and I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, you've got about as much energy as anybody I've ever seen in terms of politics.
Which is why that
I can only imagine you with more sleep.
Which is why that question was irrelevant.
All right. Mayor Villaraigosa, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We got our panel, Dan Schnur, Matt Klink, when we come back.
I've asked a simple question. What did you know? When did you know it? And why haven't you said anything?
That is Democratic candidate for California governor Antonio Villaraigosa attacking Kamala Harris and Javier Becerra for their connections to Biden as this new book, Original Sin, comes out and everybody's talking about it. Let's talk about that and more with our panel. Our returning champion is Dan Schnur, longtime political strategist, former candidate for California Secretary of State. Dan teaches politics and media at UC Berkeley, Pepperdine, and at USC, where he once taught me. And here for the first time is Matt Klink, owner and founder of Klink Campaigns. Matt has been in the campaign business for about 20 years, largely working on Republican campaigns. Welcome to The Issue Is for the first time. And Dan has literally been here since week 1, since our first ever show. So it's nice to have both of you. So Matt, we'll start with you. You just saw Antonio Villaraigosa here. You saw him going after Kamala Harris. What did you make of what he's doing?
I think it's really smart on his part. Look, we're a long way off from even a June 2026 primary. He's making news right now. If you want to be the top dog, you can't ignore the person with the highest name recognition, which is Kamala Harris right now. He's got to draw her either in or out of the governor's race, and it's a great way for him to do it.
And he's got Javier Becerra as like a secondary supporting cast member, which he needs to fight for the Latino vote anyways. Yeah. Your thoughts on it?
I agree with Matt on this, Alex. He's been involved at a level of politics that no one in the race other than Harris has. And this strategic decision, is that the kind of thing that a veteran politician is going to make?
Yeah. Is there a risk, though, because the state is so Democratic?
There is a risk. And I think you made a good point a moment ago. He was very, very smart to include Becerra in his charges. If he just talks about Kamala Harris, then it's him picking on her. By making it about both of them, as you said, not only is he competing with Becerra for the Latino and Latina vote, but it also makes it less personal, less mano a mano, and that offers him a little bit of protection.
Well, and it's a lose-lose for Becerra, too, because either says, I had no clue, okay, so you're out of the loop. Or, well, of course I know, but I didn't say anything, bad or worse.
Right.
It's already been reported that Biden's White House staff, his palace guard, didn't even expose him all that much to the cabinet. So Becerra has some deniability. And to be honest, let's agree that most normal voters don't know what a Secretary of Health and Human Services is anyway. Everybody knows who the vice president is. And they know that with the exception of Joe Biden's doctor and his wife, no one should know more about his health than his vice president. This is a very, very difficult problem for Kamala Harris. It's not going away.
You think it actually hurts her, though, in running for governor of California? You think this is something that California, largely Democratic electorate, cares about?
I do, because if you look at the field of Democratic candidates, it's not going to be easy for the average voter to differentiate between their policy positions. But Harris represents now something that they don't like about politics. The idea that something important about the health of the President of the United States was kept from them. And that's a much easier distinction for Villaraigosa and other candidates to draw.
But this book, which is getting all sorts of attention around the country, and Elex Thompson, one of the authors, is going to be with us next week here on The Issue Is, raises real questions about President Biden. Does that matter for the Democratic Party brand? Does that matter for people running for president next time, including potentially the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who really bear-hugged Joe Biden in a big way during his run? Does it matter?
It absolutely matters. And I think the party can't expect to move on with a forward-looking agenda until they grapple with the fact that, you know, the consensus that the Orange Man was bad consumed everything in the Democratic Party, so much to the point that not only, by the way, did the Politburo that they talk about, who are the close handlers of Biden in the book,
advisors.
However, the mainstream news media, they hated Trump so much that they were going to allow someone who was mentally not there to run for president again in 2024 until that debate in June came out and everybody said, wait a second.
Well, and I think there were people that were afraid of getting their axis cut off and also being mocked by their colleagues. And one of the folks who actually didn't do that was Elex Thompson, one of the authors of this book.
Correct.
And he got a whole lot of pushback from the folks in the Biden White House who said a lot of stuff about him. Jake Tapper kind of had an opposite approach. It's interesting that they're writing this book together. Your thoughts on the political impact of all of this?
So for the last decade, every Republican politician in the country has been defined in what they think and what they say about Donald Trump. Now it's the Democrats' turn, because every Democratic politician at every level of politics is going to be asked, what about Joe Biden? And the closer you get to Biden, the less deniability you have.
So it's interesting to see all of these Republicans who are now blasting Democrats for the way that they didn't criticize Joe Biden in real time, who are now not criticizing Donald Trump in real time about anything. I mean, it is hard to imagine that if Joe Biden or Barack Obama accepted a plane from an Arab country, that Republicans would not say anything about that, right? That'd be a huge, huge issue. Do you think that there's some of this happening on your side, too?
Alex, do you mean there's gambling in Casablanca?
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
Politics is hypocrisy. That, of course, the Republicans defended Donald Trump, and they're going to overlook the acceptance of a massive, was it, a 787
I mean, you
thing.
think that's a bad thing?
I think it's a horrible thing.
Okay.
I mean, they can make it safe. I don't believe all the security stuff. That's irrelevant. Except somebody is going to want something for it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you don't just give someone a plane and say, "Cool, keep it. It's yours."
Yeah.
The Qataris are going to want something for that. I mean, we have a huge base in their country right now. They're involved in every negotiation in the Middle East. They probably are going to say, "Hey, remember that plane we hooked you up with? We want to make sure that this happens." So, I mean, Trump should know better, but again, Trump is Trump.
This is why Americans hate politics. They know that Republicans, to Matt's point, are being hypocritical in excusing or minimizing Trump's behavior when they'd criticize it harshly on the other side of the aisle. And they're just as angry when they see the way Democrats are giving Biden a pass in a way that they certainly wouldn't if it were an older Republican president. Look, years ago in our class, Alex, back when you were there, and ever since then, I teach a concept called selective outrage. And it's the type of hypocrisy that Matt was talking about a moment ago. If you're on the other side, I'm going to condemn you with all the venom and vitriol I can. But if you're on my side, even if you do or say the exact same thing, I'm going to find a way to excuse it, or at least to minimize it. And that's what frustrates voters.
Which is interesting, though, that Antonio Villaraigosa is now criticizing his side to bring it full circle on this whole thing.
Mildly.
Mildly. You don't think it's enough?
No.
But it's still, so it's a, but it creates news, and so it's a man bites dog gently story.
Up next, the local impact of the big, beautiful bill. Stay with us.
I will always protect the Medicaid
I will always look to
program.
be bipartisan in areas where we agree. There are obviously going to be areas we disagree,
Look,
and we'll wait to see the final budget.
The more we see people saying, no, it's not going to happen, the saltier I get, Alex. And we're going to get this done.
That was Republican Congressmember Young Kim and Democrat Dave Min with me earlier this week. Kim was one of the leaders pushing to expand the deduction for state and local taxes in President Trump's big, beautiful bill. She helped increase the deduction from $10,000 to $40,000 for now, but it still needs to go through the Senate. Let's talk about that and more with our panel, longtime strategist and analyst Dan Schnur and Matt Klink. Dan, this big, beautiful bill, is it beautiful politically for Republicans, or are there problems here?
Hey, this is the perfect political bill right now for both parties. Republicans get to argue that they are cutting taxes and that they are prioritizing native-born or otherwise legal status Americans over those who come here without documentation. Democrats, while they obviously are losing on the substance, see this as a huge political win also, because they can argue this is a huge tax cut for rich people while working-class Americans are being harmed. So from a pure political standpoint, both sides got their perfect talking point that's going to take them through next year's midterm elections.
Do you think, though, these prospective Medicaid cuts are problematic if you're running a Republican campaign in a close district?
If they explain the Medicaid cuts, no. If they just try to argue over the top, I mean, it's not about just cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, as Donald Trump has said. You know, and in California, no, it's a loser of an argument. But around the rest of the United States, the fact that they're going to pull able-bodied Americans off the bill who should be working or at least looking for work, that's a good thing. And the last part, 1.4 million people who are illegally in this country are getting Medicaid. That needs to stop.
See, I know if you kept us on here long enough, Alex, I would find something to disagree with Matt about. This is a very, very problematic bill for Republicans in competitive House seats next year. The cuts to working-class Americans are very difficult to explain, no matter how adroit and how concisely you do it. Matt does make a good point that Trump and Republicans' strongest argument at this point is talking about undocumented immigrants receiving a lot of those benefits. And you saw Governor Newsom retreating from that in his latest budget proposal. But on balance, this is a terrific bill for Republicans to motivate their base. But for candidates for office holders like Young Kim, who need to win swing voters too, it's a much, much bigger challenge.
It's Memorial Day weekend. Your thoughts on the importance of Memorial Day weekend?
Absolutely. It is not a happy day, but it is a day to celebrate and be thankful for the men and women who over 2+ centuries have given their lives in defense of freedom in this country.
So I've been an independent for many, many years, but back when I was a Republican, I had the great privilege of working for the late Senator John McCain. And he always taught me that whenever you meet a man or woman who served their country, you thank them for their service. So on Veterans Day and Memorial Day alike, and on 363 other days as well, let's thank those brave men and women for what they do for us.
A big thank you to everybody who is watching right now for your service, and we're thinking of all the men and women who died on behalf of our country as well. Thank you both for being here. I've got a final word, my commentary about what's going on right now with anti-Semitism when we come back. My commentary is about the cold-blooded murder of 2 Jews and the wake-up call it represents for all of us. Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram were leaving a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. when a gunman unloaded 21 bullets into them. He was heard chanting, "Free Palestine," and later told officers, "I did it for Palestine, I did it for Gaza." That suspect had never actually met his victims, and if he did, he'd know that Sarah was actively working on peace efforts, including trying to solve water scarcity issues for the people of Gaza. There are legitimate criticisms of how the Israeli government has treated the innocent people in Gaza, but just because someone's Jewish doesn't mean they support everything Benjamin Netanyahu does. The phrase, often chanted on college campuses these days, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," is interpreted by some Palestinians to mean an end to what they call Israeli occupation. But Jews fear that phrase actually means ending Israel itself and the lives of the Jews living there. Holocaust survivors we've profiled over the years speak to us hoping to prevent a similar situation. Never again is what they say. For generations, Jews have stood up when other minority groups were senselessly attacked. At this moment, Jews can use as many allies as possible to stand with them and not allow this hateful rhetoric into the mainstream. Hate is never okay for anyone. I'm Elex Michaelson. We end with an image of Yaron and Sarah and a word in Hebrew that means both hello, goodbye, and peace. Shalom.